So we can meet the team here. I introduced myself already. We have Kendra Katant. She's the accounting specialist and rapid rehousing coordinator. We have Jill Menard with us. She's an accounting specialist with our finance team. Maria Diaz, she's our rapid rehousing assistant. Angel Cotto as also our rapid rehousing assistant. And Shamia Cannon, our third and final rapid rehousing assistant. So we have the whole team from the program side and the finance side, and I generally oversee the whole program. So if there's anyone that you ever need to be in contact with regarding any of this, we're all here at the moment. So let's get things started. We're going to go ahead and hand it off to Angel as he considers our icebreaker.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Ismail mentioned, my name is Angel Cotto. I'm one of the rapid rehousing assistants here. If you guys were here 2 years ago for our icebreaker, it's the same one. We love to see if people have changed their answers or just like what's the interesting, some of the thinking behind some of this. But for our icebreaker today, please use the chat. If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be? And be creative if you can. If not, any answer is good, but I want to hear some really interesting ones if possible. I'm going to throw mine in the chat as well as people are doing theirs and read some of them out loud. I see teleportation from Nicole. Anyone else, feel free to just throw them in the chat. We just want to do a quick little icebreaker and get some ideas in there. The ability to make coffee spontaneously appear. I need that, or you're going to be my best friend forever now. That's Terry. Telekinesis. That's a good one. Of course, I put mind reading because I'm nosy. So, talking with animals. That's a really good one. A classic. Time travel, teleportation again from Sylvan. Become invisible. See, I know that one too. That's a nosy one too. You want to be in places you're not supposed to be. I get that. All right, we'll take another moment here. Fixer of any and everything. That's a good one. Yep, hearing thoughts. Khadija, we're in the same place. Telepathy. Okay, Kendra. Oh, healer. That's a good one. Makes me think of water bending from Avatar, my Katara fans out there. I see we have a few more people coming in. If we can accept those folks, I'm going to read a few more out. Time manipulation. Yep, time travel is a classic. For those who are just coming in, we are just doing a quick icebreaker. If you want to put your superhero, your superpower, if you were a superhero in the chat, that'd be great. I'm going to read a couple more out as we have more people coming in, and then we're going to get started. But you can keep putting in those superpowers in there. Waiting till 108. Any more superpowers? No one else? I didn't see all my teammates put their superpowers in there. All right. The ability to mute my thoughts. Oh gosh, that is a deep one right there. Thank you, Nordia. Sometimes it's just too loud in there. All right. Well, please keep putting those in there. It is 108, and so I am going to get us started for today. Ismail, if you could go on to the next slide. So we're going to be talking about a lot of the things that you're used to seeing during your job and process and putting in tickets and putting in paperwork. The first thing I want to touch base on is the processing timeline. So this is something we'll jump and dive deeper into throughout our presentation today, and feel free to ask questions throughout each and every slide, but there will be more that we'll be sharing on the specifics. But the normal processing timeline at its barest form is The first step is the case manager, which is you guys, will submit a rental request to our email, community_assistance@act-ct.org. Not to be confused with our other email that we ask questions through, which is our ACT Funds email. This is the email that you send in all the tickets. The next step is the ACT team member assigns a rapid rehousing ticket to a processor for review. So that will be either myself, Maria, or Shamia. That those tickets get assigned to the three of us. That is when the processing timeline begins. From that point, the request can be placed in an assigned, approved, pending, or rejection status, depending on the nature of the content. So like if everything's good, it'll be an approved status. It could be pending. Sometimes it'll be rejected for the subject line. We'll talk more about that. Updates are given via email through the ticketing system to update case managers on the current status. And once the rental request is approved, a check is uploaded to the client's file in HMIS. The ticket is marked as check cut, and an email notification is sent to the case manager. So you'll always get an email when the process is completed and the check has been uploaded into HMIS. Submissions is closed and the FSR is released. The status of the FSR will be changed from pending approval to approved in HMIS. So does anyone have any questions? We will talk more about some of these specific things throughout the presentation, but let's see if there's any general questions as we're starting. All right, with no questions, I will hand it over to Shamia to talk a little bit more about this.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be going over the Rapid Rehousing Fund Request form. Everyone should be using the same documents. This document needs to be signed by your supervisor. Upload the completed documents into your client's HMIS profile under Files and Documents section. This document should indicate if the rental request is an initial, ongoing, or recert. If the payment goes beyond 12 months, please provide the necessary documents such as the exception form, inspection form, and the recertification forms. Everything that's highlighted in front of you is what needs to be filled out. The checkbox for monthly request, or if it's an initial request, the agency that's submitting the request, funding source, which month the request is for. So if it's an initial, it'll be month 1. The client's HMIS ID number, the name of the client, household, the head of household, and the sex and a date of birth. Please check off the boxes for the confirmation from the landlord and the HMIS financial service. And at the bottom where it says name of the case manager, please put your name, the agency, your contact information, and your supervisor's signature and date as well. Any questions on that? Slide, next slide, please. The second form of the fund request checklist will be the funding source. You have to put which funding source you're using, the amount of what you're requesting for. Any questions on this one? Right. And the checklist, initial request, ongoing request, recertification request. If you are not sure what documents to use, please use our link below. Box, as you see, has all the documentations that you would need to upload for the request. All right, I'm going to pass it over to my coworker, Maria.
Hi, everybody. We're gonna talk about the financial service request. And before we talk about this, I'm gonna pick back on what Shamia talked about. Before you submit a ticket to the community email, make sure you submit all the documents she talked about. And then you also have to make sure you create the financial service request before you submit the ticket. Therefore, when we are reviewing all this, it's already there and we don't have to sit here and tell you that it's missing. When you're sitting here and creating the financial service request, you have to make sure that the funding source is correct. That means the client is enrolled in the correct enrollment. For example, this one is the new opportunity and it matches all around. And this example we used was Eversource. So we make sure that is going to the correct PO box according to whatever the Eversource bill said. And then for the reference line, we use the utility and it says the February, which is whatever month we were paying for, and it says the year. And then it says the amount. When we're doing this, we have to also make sure that you're saying what kind of utility it is. For example, we pay UI, C&G, Eversource. So make sure that we get in the habit of saying what kind of utility bill it is. And also, when we're doing an initial request, initial is broken down into two. An initial request is a security deposit and a first month rent. When you're doing this and you use the word initial, we're breaking that down into two. So if, let's use this month as an example, you're gonna use December security, because you're saying what type of service it is, and this is a security, and the year is 2024. Then we're gonna do the first month rent, which will be the month, which we are in December. We're paying a rent, and the year is 2024. So that allow us to know we're paying two initial requests, which one is the security and one is the first month rent. We do not combine it because it is together. We always separate the security deposit with the first month rent. Do you have any questions on that aspect of the FSR when it comes to an initial request?
So with the initial request, you need to use two form, one request form for the security deposit and one for the first month rent? Okay.
Yes, yes, it'll always be two separate, one for the security deposit and one for the first month rent. And on the
Okay.
reference line, you will indicate that. One will be security and one will be the rent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other
And
questions?
another question, yes. And then when you do the email submission for initial, do they both go in? The PDF will it be the security deposit and the first month's in that?
Everything
first
will
email?
go, when you do the email, you will send the community and you'll put HMIS 1234 initial December request.
Okay, and so it'll have both of those in there, right?
The
But-
initial, technically, the word initial is like an initial of one thing, but when you do the FSRs, you have to break it apart. So financial purposes, we have to break it apart.
Okay,
Because the security deposit and the first month rent, the rent will go directly in the security deposit. This is just for IRS purposes.
thank you.
Okay. So it would be just one ticket, initial ticket we could upload that initial packet together, which will be the security deposit and first month rent into the email.
Yes.
Okay,
And
one
it'll be
email,
the
okay.
same thing if it's like a prorated rent. It has to specify it on the lease.
Okay,
Whether it will say it, and you'll do the same thing for the reference line. It will say December prorated, prorated, rent for December. You just have to be specific on the reference line or whatever request you're doing.
And just another thought on the difference between the security deposit and the first month's rent. So the IRS doesn't see the security deposit as the landlord's unless there is a reason for it. So on the finance side, we can't tag the security deposit amount as a recognizable income for the landlord unless the landlord says, hey, these people messed up the apartment. This is what we have to charge, and we're going to take the security deposit. At that time, then we recalculate the 1099 that's going to go to the landlord and mark it as income for them. So that's why the two things are separated.
Any other questions on the financial service request? All right, next slide, please. And these right here are just common errors that we see when we're doing this. A lot of the times we just see two funding sources. That means that either you enrolled the client in the wrong, so that's why we see two wrong ones. Sometimes, you know, you guys enroll them in duals because they are in multiple ones and you pick the wrong ones. And a lot of the times they have new property managers, and we need, you know, new W-9s, we need the WAWA, the rental assistance to match the new service request, which is the FSR. When you're submitting it, and just make sure that you sit here and you let us know, you know, this is a new payee, so therefore when we put it to finance, they don't kick it back and be like, we haven't paid this person. Or sometimes it could be a vendor that we already have paid, but if you don't let us know it's a new payee, we don't know. And if it's already someone that we paid, it could be a possibility that we will process it. So you have to make sure that you let us know that this is a new vendor for this client. And make sure that everything always matches, and make sure that the reference like indicate always the payment, the month, and the year. Any questions on this? All right, so I'm gonna move along and pass it to Jill. She'll be talking about W-9s.
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everybody. For the W-9s, the name and or business name and address listed on there does need to match whatever is on the FSR. When they are filling out the W-9s, they're either going to use a social security number. If it's a business, they're going to use the EIN. It can't be both. It has to be one or the other. So please be mindful of that. And then if there's any change in the property ownership or address, please be sure to submit a new W-9 so they're paid appropriately and correctly. Any questions on W-9s? Perfect. I'm going to send it back to Angel.
Thank you, Jill. All right, so just a little bit about submitting tickets. One important thing that we always highlight is only submitting one email submission per rental ticket. So if you are submitting a ticket, for example, for November rent, we're only submitting one ticket for that. And so sometimes there can be some confusion if you are requesting something like additional rent because there was either an issue with the calculation, or let's say there was an upcharge for something and you get approval to get that paid for. You may submit another ticket for November rent, but you have to make sure that you put it for November additional rent or November whatever it is, so that you don't just have two separate tickets that both say November rent. So anytime we do see multiple tickets for the same client for the same type of request, so it's for the same month, it's both for rent, we will reject any of the duplicates. So please remember to only create one ticket. It creates a lot of confusion on our end because sometimes duplicate payments can happen, or sometimes we have to make sure that there aren't duplicate payments, so it can delay the process if you're submitting multiple submissions for the same client. Besides that, just wanted to highlight again the correct subject line. So that's HMIS ID, type of application, month of assistance, and year. So there's an example there highlighted in black. You will put the HMS ID 12345. It's an ongoing rent, January 2024. And that's the same if you were doing an initial, if you were doing a utility, you would just put the type of request, the ID, month, and year, and you would send that to that community_assistance email. Once again, that'll get assigned to a processor. You'll receive a confirmation email that your submission has been received. If you're not getting those emails, definitely let us know, because that could be a sign that you're not receiving emails in general, or maybe you're not getting all the communications that you need to be getting. So anytime you submit a ticket, you should automatically get an email. You should get an email when it's assigned, and any communication, you should be getting emails from us because of that. So if you're not getting any of those, and for whatever reason we reach out to you through Act Funds, or you're just not receiving anything, let us know, and we'll make sure that you are in the ticketing system, that you are assigned to that ticket as well and getting those emails. Utility requests should be submitted separately on their own. So in the past, we've gotten a lot of rent tickets submitted with utility. We are no longer doing that. So if you submit those together, we will reject them. The reason we are doing that now is because it has created a lot of confusion with either like subject lines, or just not seeing that the ticket is for two different things. And if one of them is missing paperwork, so if you're only missing a bill for the utility, or if there's something going on with the rent, it will delay the process for both. So we don't want that to happen. If you're just missing a bill for utility, we want to still be able to process your rent. So rents and utilities, please submit them separately. If you want to submit multiple utilities for the same client under one ticket, that is okay. Just make sure in the subject line that you're specifying that. So if it's for the same client and they're both for November, please specify that it's both for, is either SCG, UI, or for oil, whatever it is. Specify that not only in the body of the email, but also in the subject line. So if you're going to do multiples for it, that way that'll help us out a lot. And Maria will also be mentioning this, but when it comes to paperwork in general for submitting for things like proof of income and those bills, please submit those every time if possible. It makes it a lot easier for us than looking for something that was submitted like a year before. So she'll mention that again about the bills, but also when submitting income, submitting anything that has to happen every single month, please resubmit it so that we don't have to search. And if we can't find it, we will put you in the pending status. That delays the process and delays payment. We don't want to do that. So yeah, and then proper labeling as well in HMIS is really important too. So everything is easier to find. Especially if you're submitting if you're uploading everything separately in HMIS, please have proper labeling of what is what document. All right, and my last slide, I'll be talking a little bit, if you go to the next slide, Ismail, I'm talking a little bit about the application statuses. So first one we have is approved and submitted to finance for payment processing. So this happens when there's no errors with the paperwork, everything is signed properly, everything is submitted and uploaded to HMIS. The FSRs don't have any issues. So when that happens, your submission is reviewed and approved. You will receive an update that your submission has been forwarded to our finance department. However, if there are any issues, anything's missing, something's not signed, we will put it into the pending status. You'll get an email detailing the information needed to complete the application. So if the reason why it's in pending is because there's missing paperwork, or we need any additional clarifications because you're requesting something unusual and we want to know exactly why, or if it's a 10 mismatch, we will tell you that in the email. We will give you all the information you need to complete that. And once you have completed whatever we're requesting, let us know. We'll finish processing it and we'll submit it to finance. You will also receive a systematic email every 48 hours until we receive that information. So if you ever receive an automatic email from us saying that this ticket is pending, if it comes at a weird time, just know that it's a systematic email and it will come every 48 hours. So you will always receive that until your ticket is no longer pending. And then that last note, again, just make sure to let us know when you upload stuff. We don't get any alerts for that. So if we tell you you're missing paperwork and then you upload it to HMIS, we won't know until you tell us. So we will not continue the processing until you let us know that that is there for us to review. The last type of status is the rejected application status. So this usually happens if we identify something wrong with the subject line. So if it's missing any of the things we mentioned before, HMS ID, month, year, or type of application, we will let you know and your ticket will be rejected. You'll have to submit a new ticket with the proper subject line. And also if there's any duplication. So as mentioned before, if any of us see a duplicate ticket, we will reject it and let you know that that has already been submitted. If you need to inform us that that is a different ticket for whatever reason, then submit a new ticket with the proper subject line saying like, actually, this is an additional rent. This is supposed to be another ticket for November for additional rent, not just a November ticket. So that is everything on application statuses. I will be giving it off to Maria.
All right, so I'll be talking a little bit more about utilities and when submitting a utility request, what needs to be included. You need to include a fund request, and just like an FYI, when doing a fund request, you could do the fund request all as one with the rent. You don't have to do it separate if you guys don't want. You just have to put on the second page when Shamia was talking, that she said you have to do the difference and mark that you guys will mark how much the rent is. They have a section there for utilities. You just mark the utility section and you'll write how much utility is calculated in the portion of the calculation sheet. You just write it there in the fund request. And you do the same thing for the calculation sheet right before the signature that you guys have to sign as case managers. Right before that, they have a little section that you put the information of which utility you're paying. So you'll put the account number information there. Right on top of that, you put whatever information it is for the utility amount. So you could write that there. And you also always have to make sure that all the amount match. Sometimes we tell you guys, all your amount don't match when it comes to your fund request, your calculation sheet, or your fund request, your FSRs. All those numbers don't match. We have to make sure that all the amounts that you're putting are all aligned with each other before we're able to process. So you also have to make sure that all that matches. And like Angel said, I was going to talk about the utility. Sometimes, it's hard for us to find a bill because it was put a while back. So it's easier if you guys, put more bills in to make sure the bills are clear. Sometimes they're hard to read for finance, and sometimes they'll kick it back to us. And a little bit in the next slide, I'll be showing you examples of a few bills that we looked at. Finance is still having a little bit of trouble sometimes with the address that you guys be putting when submitting. Some of the address are wrong. We have to make sure that you guys are looking at the bills to make sure it says pay to and on the bill. So make sure that are the right address when you're looking at it. And mind you, the examples I'm going to show are examples on those bills. Each bill is different, so you have to look at the bills. When I was looking for examples, they had about 3 addresses, so just an FYI on that part. And then I already talked a little bit about the reference line and told you that you have to indicate the month, the utility, and the year. So just make sure that we do that, and just make sure that you put the COC YGP participant agreement. And not all the time, but some clients want to opt out. And if they do, they just have to provide a W-9, but you just have to make sure that you make the client aware that if they receive funds over a certain amount, which is $599, that they'll get a 1099. And again, Angel already talked a little bit about this, that you will submit a ticket separately from the rent on this part, and you can submit utilities all together. Just make sure that when you're submitting that, you sit here and put all the utilities initials on the top, so then when we're processing, we know each one. Ishmael, can you go to the next slide so they can see the examples, please? These are 2 examples that I looked at. If you looked at the one on the right side, it just says, please send payment to, and it gives you an address, and the other one says the same thing. So when you're looking at the bills, just please try to look at each bill. It won't be in the same location for each bill. Make sure it tells you what address they want you to send it to. And I'm gonna send it off to Angel.
All right. Just wanted to quickly go over our ACT funds. So if there are any questions regarding a request after the ticket has been closed, you can email funds@act-ct.org. I know there has been times where people have gotten the 2 emails confused. The community underscore one is for the the tickets to submit. funds@act-tt.org is for any questions you may have, specifically when the ticket's already closed and you have questions regarding it. So some of the examples for that is I need to cancel a ticket submission. I am requesting a status on a check. The check needs to be picked up in person or stop payment on a check. There's so many more questions that I get on there. Honestly, anything that you have questions about, if it's not pertaining to a currently open ticket, so like you can't just ask the processor because the ticket is already closed, feel free to email us at ActFunds and ask any of these questions or anything else that comes to mind. We do have a policy to wait 3 weeks before reissuing a check. The reason for that is oftentimes we've seen checks come back to the office within a week or two. We've also had it where it's been a couple weeks. The case manager will ask us to reissue the check, and then the landlord attempts to cash the check and gets a fee on their account for that. So because of these reasons and to prevent any confusion, we wait 3 weeks from the check cut date before reissuing. And if you ever need to see what the check cut date is, we upload the checks into HMIS as soon as they're cut. So within a day of when they're cut, you'll see them on HMIS and you'll see the date on the top right as well. Please do not submit any questions to the ticketing system. So to the other email, if you do, those will be automatically rejected and we'll let you know to go through Act Funds. So that will just delay the process for you getting an answer to that question. Any any questions that you have that are about tickets that are closed should go through Act Funds. If you send any calls or questions to any processors directly, so if you call me or Shamia or Maria or just send us emails regarding a ticket that's already been closed or submitted to finance, we will refer you to Act Funds. So once again, that will just delay the process. We are always happy to set up a conversation about an open ticket if necessary. So we can, suggest that let's take this on the phone and let's answer this question because there may be some confusion going on through email. So we will probably suggest that from time to time when we see that there's confusion happening. But if you just randomly call us or send us emails, especially when the ticket's already closed, we will tell you to go through Act Fund. So that will just delay the process for you getting the answers that you need. And lastly, we don't communicate directly with landlords. So if there are any questions or concerns that the landlords have, just email us through Act Funds. We will help you and provide any information that you need to relay to the landlord, but we won't be speaking with them directly. And 99 cases out of 100, we only speak to them when absolutely necessary. So do not give them our contact info. Just reach out to us and we will help you with giving whatever information they need. Ismail, if you can go to the next
Hey,
one.
Joe,
Yeah.
hold on. You have 2 questions. The
Yes.
first question says, is there an email we can reach out? Oh, somebody already answered. Kendra answered it. The other one says, are all the checks cut the first of the month, even if an FSR was submitted in the middle of the month?
That's a great question for Kendra to explain the full process of what date exactly those checks are cut usually.
So, if a check is submitted on time, they are cut on, well, lately we've been cutting them previous to them as long as they're set on time. But most checks, as long as, it doesn't go past I think it's the 20th, past the 20th of the month, we try to ensure that it goes out on time. If it's any later, then it just really gets cut based off like what order it came in, if that makes sense to you guys.
So if you submit your ongoing rental requests between the 20th and 25th, and everything happens and goes through the process to finance, generally speaking, those checks will get sent out prior to the 1st.
Yes, and anything later would just be whenever, like I said, as they come in. So we guarantee the 1st as long as it's done on time.
Any other questions about the timeline for the check cuts or about Act Funds before I move on?
For initial funding requests, I have landlords that, sometimes do mid-month move-ins, and they want a time window when to expect the checks once it's sent to act for processing. What exactly should I be, reporting back to them?
I will also let you handle that, Kendra.
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that one more time? I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, so I handle initial funding requests, and they
Okay.
kind of come as they are, so the first of the month really isn't a thing. So
Mhm.
when I am communicating to a landlord and that the check is going to be processed and they ask for a specific time frame,
Mhm.
what do you suggest I respond to that with?
Well, because like they're kind of sporadic, you're saying they just kind of come in. I would try to not give an exact direct date because we can process it and we usually process things as soon as we receive them. We do print them like we were talking about on time if they're submitted between the 20th and the 25th it was. Um but I don't recommend giving them a very, very specific date. Like I said, the mail's also an aspect when we think about this.
Mhm.
And especially because it's like around time for the holidays. And even if it's not the holidays, we tend to notice that um it's hard to really pinpoint a date, especially if we're dealing with the US Postal Service. So,
Sometimes that does determine whether or not a landlord will be working with our program and
okay.
subsidy. So I have been telling them it could take up to 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay.
I
That's
don't
that's fair.
give
I would
dates,
keep it
but is
as
that
that.
correct?
Yeah, I would keep it as that. We don't foresee that stuff being any later than 1 to 2 weeks. Like I wouldn't give them any other date or
Gotcha.
timing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to jump on here, just to continue the question. So, assuming that we have everything right, so you've got all the W-9, everything, the lease, all of your information and documents are good. And when we do our matches, so we match with the IRS, their information, if that happens, good. So 1 to 2 weeks is definitely a doable time frame. If everything's perfect, I would say, and I wouldn't share this with the landlords, right? You want to be able to manage that expectation while at sometimes balancing, like you said, whether or not they're going to work with us on the program. You do want to balance that out. But anytime between 5 and 8 business days to get a check out, right? But that's not obviously counting any external factors that happen after we send the check out. Um, that's the best case scenario for an initial request.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Other questions? So there's a question. I will read it out loud. I haven't got a chance to read it myself, but if the FSR is submitted late, for example, due to the client delaying and supplying pay stubs, October rent was submitted on 11/14, would that check be sent out right away, or would it be held and sent out with December 1st batch? It would not be held until a December 1st batch. We print twice a week. So if a check is late, it will be submitted with the next batch of checks. So um, as Ismail and Kendra were mentioning, there is variance and when and how often, and if there's any issues or delays with the process, but we do print up to 2 times a week, usually twice a week. And so if you submit something outside of that 20th or the 25th, somewhere between another week or two, when it comes to like 5 to 8 business days, I think is also even more beyond reasonable for a regular submission for like a rent. It's probably going to be quicker than that, but it also depends if everything's on time and which day of the week, when we're printing, things like that nature. But we will not be holding it until the next first of the month. All right. I'm just going to go over our contact information. So we will definitely have more time for questions after that, but I'm just going to go over that last slide very quickly, and then we'll open it up to see if there are more questions. Oh yeah, it's right here in front of me. So for any support or any needs that there are, feel free to contact us at our website. That is our our phone number. That is our general phone number for the entire organization, not specifically for this department. So Once again, it is easiest to reach out to us through our department email address at funds@act-ct.org. We can set up a conversation call there. We can answer any questions you need there. That is the easiest way to contact us. So if you feel the need to call our direct line, you can. You are more than likely going to be leaving a message with someone at our front desk, and then we'll get back to you when we can. Fastest way is always through our funds email. We also have our department website if you would like to check that out. Our rapid rehousing training, this one that we are showing currently, will be posted up there, and we'll also share this via email after this so that everyone has access to it. So the funds at ACT email and our website links are there. We shared earlier the DOH website to get all the proper up-to-date documents. I'll share that again in the chat in case anybody wants to bookmark that. That will have all of the documents that you need to submit, whether it's for utility, whether it's for a rent, whether it's for initial, the checklist, the finance, not the FSR, the funds request checklist documents are all on there. They're all up to date. If they do choose to update those documents in the future, which I'm sure they will, the updated ones will be on that link. So please, if you are ever questioning whether you have the right documents or if you should be looking out for something new, click on this link, bookmark it, and save the documents that you need. But yeah, that is our last slide. So Ismail, if you can, yep, we will open it up to any questions.
And as you guys are thinking about questions or things like that, be mindful if you guys are getting new hires, onboarding and things of that nature, and you need folks to get some special TA, we can go ahead and schedule some time with you guys individually if that needs to happen. If there are ongoing challenges where perhaps there is some kind of confusion, whether it's in the communication with us, if we see that there are too many emails going back and forth, we're going to encourage a phone call so that we can all get on the same page. Ultimately, we want the same things you want. We want to get this payment out as fast as possible. And if we have everything correct on our end, we can do that. And so we want to just make sure we're all on the same team here. Latanya?
Yeah, so I have a quick question. Because this would help when I have new staff that's enrolled that comes onto the team. This particular training that we're doing today, is this recorded where I could keep it somewhere to show new staff when they come on board?
It's recorded and it's going to be hosted on our website. The link is going to be on the slide deck. We'll send that out to everyone with the direct link to the program page on our website. Yeah.
Okay, appreciate that.
And also, just to even further clarify, so for new staff, you guys are probably well aware that they have to go through HMIS training separately through Nutmeg in order to get their credentials, in order for them to start inputting things in HMIS. So that is completely separate from us. We don't take part in that. We're just on the processing side.
Okay, thank you so much.
I had a quick question.
All right.
When you say you're going to submit a rent, like you're going to send the email to ACT to let them know that you submitted a rent, what should you be putting on the subject line for that email?
So if you're submitting a new ticket, so going back to this slide here, you're going to submit the request to community_assistance@act-ct.org. And this is an example of the subject line. You're going to have the HMIS ID number. You're going to indicate whether it's an ongoing, an initial, or utility, a recertification, the month, name, and the year.
So on that, and when you send those out, does it just say ongoing, or do you have to say whether it's rent or utilities, or is it just ongoing January 2024?
So ongoing to us means an ongoing rent. You can use
Okay.
the word rent next to ongoing if you would like. You could just use ongoing. To us, that just means a rent. That doesn't mean an ongoing utility. We refer to ongoing generally to rents. So if it's a utility, we would expect a utility wording in the subject line.
Okay, thank you. I think that's where I get confused.
So Deborah, to piggyback on Ishmael, so if it's a utility, you'll do the same wording that says there, but you'll put 1, 2, 3, January utility 2024. If it's a UI utility, you could put UI. You know how sometimes clients have multiple ones and they get a certain amount, and you're dividing it into like 3. You could put UI, CNG, whatever you're divided it into, you could put it in the subject line, and then when we're processing it, we could divide that one ticket that you put in it into 3 payments, 2 payments, whatever it is that you want us to do when we're processing it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Nice to put a name to the face. Hey, y'all. Hey, Act.
How you doing?
My question is this. So when you guys send the pushbacks as far as like things that we have to, things that you guys cannot see in HMIS, or if there's a missing document, and is it your procedure to send it like one by one? Or is there any way that you guys can like send all the issues and then we can fix it? So I'm asking this question because a lot of times, like I'll upload something, I'll send in my request, and then I'll get a message and say, hey, you know, this has to be fixed before we can move forward. And then from there, I'll fix that, and then I'll come and there'll be something else like, hey, now this needs to be fixed. So instead of doing it like that, is that your protocol, or is that just like, is there a way to make it just so that we can move things along faster? Sometimes it takes a little bit.
Yeah, I can take this question. So we try to our best to review everything that we have available before responding to those emails so that you have everything that you need there. The issue sometimes is that, like, let's say we're missing all of the documentation for December rent. Then at that point, we don't have an amount to match to the FSR. We don't have a landlord name to match to the FSR. Like, we're missing a lot of other things from there. And so it really depends on the type of request. So like, let's say it's a utility, we're missing all the documentation. So then we ask you to submit the documentation, you submit it, and then we see that the bill there is blurry and finance won't accept it because they can't read it. So then now we have to send you another email following up that we need a new bill. And then, so it's one of those things where it's like we do our best with the information we have available, and we try to address all of the issues that we see there. But there are some issues that we can't see until we have some of that paperwork. Or sometimes you'll let us know that the landlord is like a different name or the address is different. So then now that's different from the paperwork. So when we ask you, you know, on the FSR, why is this a new landlord? You're saying, okay, well, they changed that. So now we have to ask you for new things. So we attempt to address all the issues all at the same time, but we can only address it with what information we have available.
Right, that makes sense. I just wanted to get a little bit more understanding of it.
And like, I can say I've definitely been at fault for like not noticing something, and then like not like I noticed something immediately on the document submitted, so then I'll let you know, and then I notice something that's wrong on the FSR. So usually we try to be very mindful of reviewing everything before sending out an email. So it just depends on what we have available, and we try to be as meticulous as possible.
Okay, thank you, Angel.
Yeah. Any other questions?
All right. Well, if there aren't any questions now, feel free to submit any questions later on if you want. to the funds email. That's the email that we want to make sure everyone uses to communicate with our team, that our general questions are questions outside of a ticket. So continue to do that. We're here. We're partners in this. We want to get things out as fast as possible. And so again, if we see that we're communicating a little too much by email, we're going to try to pick up the phone and get it squared away quicker. That's our practice, and that's how we want to keep it moving. We want to thank everyone for your time this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and have these trainings 2 times a year, but like I said, if there are special requests for technical assistance throughout the year, we can certainly handle those. So thank you everyone for coming, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.